Hello, my dearest friends. Welcome again to the Aquilani History Podcast. I'm thrilled to say this is the finale of the series, History of WARRI, Red Rivers, Trade, Politics, War, and Merchant Princes of the Niger Delta. It's been an amazing journey with you. Time does redefine speed when I'm with you on here. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me. Thank you for your comments, questions, feedback, and support. I appreciate everything and every layer peeled back with you. This is the final episode. As a quick recap, we started together when WARRI was still a small town at the end of a river, ruled by an exiled Benin prince who established a royal line that became staunchly Catholic. The fledgling nation became masters of trade of all sorts, dark and sinister initially as middlemen of slave trade, and then less so with palm oil, after the British naval patrols fought action upon action to stem the illicit trade. The kingdom of WARRI was thrown into chaos when its king, Akengboa, and his two immediate heirs died in quick succession, sparking a slave revolt and general unrest. Power eventually settled across two rival families on opposite banks of the Benin River. From one of these rose the most powerful oil merchant of his generation, Nana. But the European powers are now circling. They're not content to be mere business partners. They maneuver and enforce their way into domination. Jaja, one of the trader kings in the region, has been ousted, and now all eyes rest on Nana and his monopoly on the oil trade in the WARRI and Benin rivers. The stakes have never been higher. This is episode 6, the series finale of the Red Rivers, the history of WARRI, trade, politics, war, and the merchant princes of the Niger Delta. Episode 6, Black Rivers. Let's dive in. Now, Nana and all these Shekiri chiefs must have been following the events that happened to Jaja extremely carefully and with very much warranted apprehension. Nana continued to exercise the right to open and close off markets in the Urobo hinterland, as provided for by the treaty which he signed in 1884, just like Jaja did. So in 1893, the Oil Rivers Protectorate had merged with the holdings of the Royal Niger Company, that company that sort of operated up north, to form the Niger Coast Protectorate. So this enlarged the protectorate even more significantly, and this had multiple consequences for Nana. First, the organization of the protectorate had changed. Previously, the governor of the river was in some ways like an executive arm through which the British government and consular courts were to be enforced. But with the new structure of the new protectorate, the office of the governor simply ceased to exist. His staff of office was taken and destroyed. Nana, as far as the British show, was chief only of his village of Ebrohimi. So instead, local political agents were commissioned, and one of those chosen by the authorities was Dore, son of Numa, a direct descendant of Emaye and Akengboa of the royal house of Emaye, a direct rival to the house of Ologboshere, to which Nana belonged. So Dore was literate, he was friendly with the consuls and vice consuls. He was seen as the leader of the opposition by the British and considered to be a friendly native. Nana was also experiencing some opposition from within his own house. So Dudu was a cousin of Nana's father who'd lived with them in Ebrohimi for a very long time, but there was some sort of enmity between them. And then Dudu started to drift closer to Dore and the house of Emaye, meaning that if things came to a head and came to blows with the British, he might not get as much support from even within his own house. And the British were determined that one way or another, Nana's oil markets in the hinterland would be opened, regardless of the legal or political ramifications. Some British officials had already started to refer to Nana as the second Jaja. It was now 1894. It was just 7 years since Jaja had been deposed and exiled. The consul at this time was MacDonald, and he went on leave. His replacement, Ralph Moore, was what Nigerians would call a bit of an oversabi. He seemed a bit too keen to resolve the thorn that Nana had become in the side of the British establishment. So this would start out a long, drawn-out correspondence between Ralph Moore and Nana, which would eventually lead to violence. So on the 21st of June 1894, all trade on the Benin River had been closed off by Nana due to some disputes. So the acting consul general, Ralph Moore, summoned Nana to attend a meeting to discuss matters of vital importance aboard a British ship. So Nana had studied the whole Jaja situation and he sensed the trap, especially as Moore's letter was quite vague. All he said was that he wanted to discuss matters of vital importance. So Nana replied, tendering his apologies and not being able to attend, as he was recently bereaved and that his dear brother was gravely ill, which was true. He said he would send his adjutant, Tonwe, instead. On the 24th of June, Moore basically said, sorry for your situation, but you must turn up tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning without fail. On the 25th of June, that's the following morning, Nana replied saying it's not customary to leave so soon after being bereaved. So Moore replied saying it wasn't good enough of an excuse, and finally expanded on what he meant when he said vital importance in his first letter. So basically he said there were following issues: that Nana's agents were being obstructive, that Nana was obstructing the river and hampering free trade. Nana had to surrender his head slave to answer for crimes committed in the Urobo hinterland when some citizens had been kidnapped. He gave Nana a 2-week ultimatum to turn up or none of his canoes would be allowed to ply the waterways. To which Nana replied again. He apologized for his absence, stating that the alleged atrocities may have been conducted by his slaves without his authority. He did say he would recall his head slave, and he stated that people had been seized, but that was in response to a default of a loan worth about 200 barrels of oil. He however begged for his slave to have more time to hand over his affairs, as this slave was pretty much in charge of all of his accounts and dealings. And regarding the ultimatum, he basically left the consul's ultimatum unread. So Moore informed Nana that until all the captured people were returned and Nana opened up trade on the river, that the river was now close to him and his men, and any canoes of him found on the river will be seized, and that he was not to leave his town of Ebrohimi. Consul Moore further went on to make a proclamation banning the use of any war canoe from anyone at all on the rivers. He ended by sending his condolences, as Nana's brother, who was ill, had now died, cold. Nana was effectively under siege in his own town, and he pondered on his response to Moore's actions for about 2 weeks. He decided to be conciliatory and deferent in his reply. He told Consul Moore that he was worried about being deported and that he won't be attending in person. He further said that he had no fight with the British and that it was a known fact that natives cannot win a war against the white man. Moore had lost patience, and he reacted by sending for the warship HMS Alecto and further reinforcements. These arrived on the 30th of July. Moore then called for a meeting of all the leading Ishekiri chiefs on board the same ship, HMS Alecto, including Nana. He gave sureties for everyone's safety, including Nana's. The meeting held, and everyone who was worth anything in Ishekiri land were in attendance, everyone except Nana. At the meeting, a new treaty was brought onto the deck of the powerful naval ship, with reinforcements of soldiers and officers all around, and the Ishekiri chiefs were asked to consider and sign. Turns out that in the midst of all this not so subtle display of sheer power, and without their own war canoes, they all signed. This treaty included the Articles 6 and 7, opening up the entire region to free trade, ratifying and overriding the old treaty signed by Nana. Consul Moore, flushed with this victory, again invited Nana to return the captives taken by his head slave and to report to the consulate to settle matters. Till then, he said, you and your people are hereby forbidden to appear on any waters of the Benin or WARRI districts. Any canoe belonging to you or your people found on the waterways will be seized and forfeited, and should the occupants of them not stop when called upon from the government launches or boats to do so, they will be liable to be fired upon. Nana had this to say: please try your best and leave me alone, Consul General, he wrote. I have freighted the walls of government. No black men's fit to do anything against the government except the Lord God. Nana was not left alone. In fact, the opposite happened. The siege around his creek was tightened, and the naval patrols had found a blockade at the entrance of the creek leading up to Ebrohimi, Nana's town. Moore ordered it destroyed. If you recall, well-constructed barricades had been used to successfully repulse British naval attacks some decades ago. The HMS Alecto, a steam-powered man-of-war ship, proceeded to the large barrier made of iron. Nana would later state that this barrier had been in place since the days of his father to protect his creek from pirates, Anyways, it was a really impressive piece of construction and required 150 charges to blow it up. Whilst this was being done, suddenly the dense vegetation on the banks of the river came alive with a barrage of gunfire aimed at the ship. The crew of the HMS Alecto sprang into action and responded in kind with gunfire and rockets. It was a very brief exchange, but when the smoke had settled, there were casualties aboard the Alecto. There was no turning back now for Nana. For contrary to his last letter, it would appear that the black men's did fit after all. By Lord God, this was war. Moore, having been given his case for war, moved really quickly. He suspected, and rightly so, that Ebrohimi itself would be massively defended. He would not attack it until he had massed enough forces. But something had to be done to show everyone that one doesn't simply fire upon a British vessel and get away with it. As a show of force, Moore set about disciplining those chiefs who supported Nana. An Ijaw chief had attacked a neighboring village, Bobby, belonging to the house of MIA. When the Ijaw chief was summoned by Moore, he refused because he had already referred the matter to Nana. Moore immediately dispatched the Alecto to level the village of that Ijaw chief with a terrifying show of cannonade. The message could not be clearer. Nana is no longer in charge of these parts. I am the captain now. Whilst waiting for reinforcements to arrive, further attempts at peace were made. Nana had set up a white flag at the mouth of the creek leading to his town with a banner stating that he wanted peace. He sent letters to Moore asking for arbitration from a third party, suggesting the colony of Lagos, for instance. Back and forth, a flurry of letters went, but Moore maintained that he needed to meet in person and that Nana needed to give up the captives and surrender. Nana, in turn, would continue to reiterate his fears for his safety. By now, the British troops had 2 warships, the HMS Alecto, HMS Phoebe, and 7-pounder field guns that had been brought all the way from Lagos. Consul Moore had also received further reinforcement of 100 men. They began systematically destroying villages around Ebrohimi to properly isolate it, and they began a cautious approach up the creek to the town itself. On the 25th of August, a scout party had advanced about 400 yards up the creek, and they were suddenly greeted with withering cannon and massed small arms fire. The armor plating of their boat was not enough. 2 men were instantly killed and several were injured. An officer lost a foot and the boat took on severe damage. The commander of this mission managed to steer the boat out of range and beat a hasty retreat. This failed assault made it clear that Ebrohimi was probably more defended and well provisioned to last a long siege. The scouting party had not even been within a mile of the town and the resistance was this severe. This would require a combined land and water force to storm the town, and it was not going to be a picnic. 4 days later, on the 29th of August, their suspicions were confirmed when the attacking force discovered a stockade wall 8 feet high, several hundred yards long, with 23 heavy cannon emplacements. The advance against the town continued nonetheless. The 7-pounder cannons from Lagos were brought to bear on the defences whilst the infantry advanced. The close coordination between the heavy artillery shelling and the ground troops won the day. The stockade wall protecting the outskirts of Ebrohimi was overwhelmed for the loss of only 3 lives of the colonial troops. Once past the stockade, numerous small creeks revealed themselves and these would need to be crossed by felling trees, and they were under constant small arms fire. It was getting dark, and some of the field guns had been washed away by the rising waters, so a decision was made to fall back to the ships. The military mission had still not reached the town of Ebrohimi. These were still the peripheral defences, and no one knew what kind of resistance would be met once in the town proper. The maze of creeks that also had to be crossed was another natural defensive barrier that would cost many lives to bridge. So the colonial authorities decided to bombard and siege the town to submission, rather than expose their troops to unnecessary risks. 2 more gunships were brought to bear on the town, making a total of 4, and the noose was tightened even further. A £500 reward was placed for the capture of Nana, and this amounts to about £80,000 in 2024 currency. Again, back and forth letters went between Nana and Consul Moore. Nana protested that he feared for his life, especially if he surrendered, and that his weapons of war have been so far defensive, while Moore still insisted on a full surrender. The stalemate persisted up until 25th of September. Moore had 4 gunships, several hundred troops, including Royal Marines and Blue Jackets. Preparations had been made by cutting a track through the dense vegetation up the flank of the town. The attack would proceed from the stockade captured in August, as well as via the newly cut track, with support fire from the gunships. Within the town, Nana and about 2,000 defenders were awaiting his onslaught. Final preparations were made, and with the last set of letters exchanged with no results, the order to storm the town was given at 5:30 a.m. on the 25th of September. The defenders were very much alert and matched the salvos fired by the British troops. It was a slugfest of lead and cannon, a grim cacophony of fire and death. Ebrohimi heaved with everything he had, like a shuddering beast cornered by fearsome hunters. Her defenders gave as much as she took. By 6:30 a.m., 3 prongs of attack infantry advanced ever so close to the town. The famed Blue Jackets, the Marines, and a party of native soldiers supported with Maxim guns. One by one, and then much more rapidly, the guns from Ebrohimi fell silent as the Maxims and cannon made short work of them. Many of the wooden buildings in the town caught fire, and by 9 a.m., apart from the crackling and crashing of the burning wooden structures, Ebrohimi was completely silent. When the troops entered the town, they were glad the resistance had ended when it did, because of the capacity to wage war was still quite evident. The amount of cannon, artillery, ammunition, guns, cases of gin, oil, and such like that were found in the town. Nana himself had escaped with his family. He was, however, hunted down doggedly. His head slave was captured. His party of canoes was fired upon, and Nana consequently lost his sister and one of his children. He made a final stance in the village of Okotobo, where he was set upon by a combined force of protectorate troops, but the vast majority of them were from rival Ishekiri chiefs from the royal house of Emaye. Most of his lieutenants were captured or killed, but Nana escaped once more to Lagos. Nana was treated kindly in Lagos by the governor of the Lagos colony, Sir Gilbert Carter, who provided a police escort for him and told him he would be left at liberty if he made no attempts to escape. He was in fact treated like a bit of a celebrity. He granted interviews and was free to move around. But the Consul General of the Niger Coast Protectorate, bear in mind that Lagos was a separate entity at this point in time. The Consul General of the Niger Coast Protectorate, Sir Claude MacDonald, however, asked for Nana to be returned to the Niger Coast Protectorate so he could stand trial, and eventually Nana was returned to Old Calabar. Nana's trial was something of an anticlimax. It was presided over by Sir MacDonald, who was a career soldier. He had no legal training, and there were no assessors at this court, and there were no lawyers representing either side. It began on the 30th of November in the consular court at Old Calabar, under the provisions of the Africa Ordering Council of 1893. Now, a quick word of what ordering councils are. Orders in councils are made by British monarch acting on the advice of the monarch's privy council. They are improved in person by the monarch, even though the contents are essentially drafted by the government. So basically, they were the legal code of how British law applied in places not within her dominions. They were based on the laws of Britain itself at the time, but it did note that where there were local treaties which predate the order, then effect is to be given to them, notwithstanding if they may be inconsistent with the law in force in England. And these laws apply to British citizens, their property, foreigners who submitted themselves to the jurisdiction of Britain, or foreigners whose government has agreed for or consented to the exercise of jurisdiction over them. Nana was charged with making war against Her Majesty's government, of acting in opposition to British consular officers in execution of their duties, and not taking their advice in matters relating to peace, order, and good government, and the general progress of civilization. Do you remember that article from the treaty? He was also charged with breach of peace and incitement to breach peace. Consul Moore painted the picture of a chief who owed his positions to British patronage and who persistently defied demands to allow free trade. Nana's accusers considered that he was bound by his treaty obligations to allow free trade. Although Nana had struck out this provision of Article 6, he did not challenge the British about this in court. In fact, he did not ask Moore any questions at the trial, and when it came to making his defense, he denied obstructing trade. Maybe he realized that this was just a show trial and his guilty verdict was a foregone conclusion, just like Jaja. He simply stated that he always wanted peace, that he had raised his white flag and only fired back when it was fired upon. The trial was a bit of a sham and he was found guilty. He was sentenced to deportation for life from the Benin district and his property was declared forfeited. Consul MacDonald reported to the Foreign Office on the 13th of December that Nana had been deported to Old Calabar and then later to Accra. The whole thing just reeked of mediocrity. Specific portions of the order in council quoted did not even refer to the purported offences committed by Nana. Nana also did not sign Article 6 relating to free trade, thus it was well within his rights to restrict trade as he wished within his domains. The very basis, the very set of laws, the Order in Council Africa in 1893 states that application of British laws outside the territory was not meant for foreigners except foreigners who had submitted themselves to jurisdiction and foreigners whose governments had agreed or consented for this exercise of jurisdiction over them, none of which applied to Nana. But the court simply implied that he had authority over Nana because he lived within the protectorate, so the goalposts of British laws had changed without any precedent or legal basis. When the dispatches of the trial were audited by the British government at Whitehall in London 4 years later, the Foreign Office officials were confused and embarrassed with the mix-up of the wrong sections of the Order of Council and essentially the whole trial. They doubted that MacDonald had the power to actually deport Nana because the section with which he was convicted provided for a fine or imprisonment, but not deportation. Normally, these irregularities should have been passed on to the Queen's Privy Council, but the legal advisor thought it might be better to just let things slide and take no notice of the official dispatch. It was also agreed that it was unnecessary to put Nana's trial in print, since by the middle of 1895, it is not now probable that questions will be asked. Nana remained stoic in exile and focused on ensuring the education of his children. His influential friends continued to press for his release, and Nana was allowed to return from exile in 1906. On the 8th of August 1906, the All Prince of the Benin River received a triumphant welcome back home. Delegates came from all families and communities in Ishekiri land to welcome Nana back from exile. He received many gifts and servants. He built a new village near Koko. Bruns describes this as well laid out with wide streets and kept scrupulously clean. He continues, Nana was one of the most interesting Africans I ever met, a man of strong character and good manners. The people of the river never failed to pay him honor. Even the recognized chief, Dore Numa, when his canoe met that of Nana on the river, would draw aside until he had passed. Nana bore no ill will towards the British who had defeated and exiled him until his death in 1916. Trade on the Benin River never reached the dizzying heights as during the era of the merchant prince of the Niger Delta. Dore remained a paramount chief until his death in 1932. The descendants of Akengbua accused him of usurping the royal prerogatives which belonged to them. The Ishekiri monarchy was restored in 1936 of Giniwa II, a great-grandson of Olu Akengbua. There have been 4 Olus after him, with the most recent being Olu Ogiame Atuwashe III, crowned on the 21st of August 2020 at a very widely publicized and grand ceremony. The Niger Coast Protectorate was stitched on in 1900 with territories chartered by the Royal Niger Company below Lokoja to form the Southern Nigeria Protectorate. Lagos Colony was added in 1906 to form the Colony and Protectorate of Southern Nigeria, to which a further region, Northern Nigerian Protectorate, was stitched on still. And when the stitching was done, the completed piece was an impressive giant. In 1914, the switch was flipped. The giant awoke, not quite whole at its birth and wondering what it even was. Strong and impressive as it may be, this giant has all too often tried to rip itself apart at its many seams. Stronger than the sum of its parts, and paradoxically, both immensely strong and weak because of this, Nigeria, the giant, will ultimately decide what it wants to be. Although the South-South represents only 5% of Nigerian territory, it contributes to the Nigerian economy massively due to its extensive oil and natural gas reserves. The region has a population of about 26 million people, about 12% of the total population of the country. And despite its vast oil wealth, it is still plagued by poverty, insecurity, and environmental crisis as a result of oil pollution. In this second coming of oil, the red rivers now flow black, and the trade has always been, but now, in more ways than before, just as crude. And it's a wrap, my lovelies. I hope you've enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed producing this for you. It's been a journey and a half, and this series was plagued with quite a few difficulties and setbacks, and it almost didn't happen, but last we no agree. I'm truly grateful and honored for your support and many comments, everything. Thank you for your company. Thank you for making my bubble truly beautiful and amazing. I see everything you've done, and there's no one more pleased or thankful for you than me. Again, I must Oliver Twist and ask for more. Please help me grow by sharing, following and plugging me in as much as you can. And I'll be back with more soon. I will be taking a short hiatus to focus on some professional exams in a few weeks, but production will resume after that. In the meantime, please feel free to listen as many times as pleases you and ask questions or post your comments and suggestions on here or email me on aquilanihistory@gmail.com. I hope you have an amazing Easter, Ramadan, spring break, or whatever you get up to. I wish you all good health and amazing success as you go out there and make history. Stay well, keep glowing and thriving, stay gorgeous, and see you soon.